Taoiseach, I brought to your attention yesterday a study by Kathleen Ryan and Trinity College into our child and adolescent mental health services. And I referenced the fact that there were thousands of children and young people on waiting lists to access psychiatrists and psychologists. And in addition, how many professionals in the service were finding it challenging, frustrating and disillusioning. And indeed, a lot of brilliant people were leaving the service. And that there's a collective feeling of frustration among many working in the child and adolescent mental health services. I thought, Taoiseach, your response was complacent and revealed a certain lack of appreciation of the crisis that our mental health services are currently in across the board. We have a 10% increase in the number of children waiting for access to child and adolescent mental health services. Over 2,500 children waiting, 350 vulnerable young people waiting longer than 12 months for an appointment, which is shameful given the vulnerability that those children are in. And outside of the CAHMS service, you're now looking at over 6,500 children waiting for a primary care appointment in psychology at the end of January of 2018. 1,700 waiting for a psychology appointment for over a year. Now, Taoiseach, I think you'll accept that timely intervention is essential when dealing with vulnerable young people in circumstances such as this. And what has compounded this is that there's been a 20% increase in the number of children admitted to adult wards. 81 vulnerable young people last year spent over 630 days in adult wards, a very traumatic experience. Now, the Ombudsman for Children, Dr. Niall Muldoon, made a recent and valuable presentation to the Oireachtas Committee on Mental Health, outlining young people's experiences of our mental health services. And he consulted with 25 young people who told of their experiences. And to quote from that, he said, "Many of the young people spoke of the length of time it took to access CAHMS and of the stark differences in the availability and consistency of the service throughout the country. The young people described these delays and inconsistencies as being, quote, very, very difficult. They also referenced the distance of the inpatient units from their homes and so on. And one person spoke about being placed in an adult psychiatric ward, an experience they described as, quote, traumatic." And you add to that, Taoiseach, the huge issues in terms of recruitment to our mental health services. You have real issues in terms of the number of vacancies. 31% of psychiatry posts either vacant or temporarily filled, and right across 500 vacancies in psychiatric nurses. So we have real issues and concerns with our mental health services. And I want to ask Taoiseach, do you accept that there are major issues with our mental health services, and particularly access to child and adolescent services, that many families and young people are experiencing unacceptable delays in accessing these services, and do you accept there are major recruitment and retention issues in terms of recruiting professionals? And finally, will you consider expanding the treatment purchase fund to encompass gaps in our mental health services?
Taoiseach, please.
Thanks very much. But I put it to you, Taoiseach, that there were 2 psychiatrists resigned their posts 3 weeks ago in the Waterford-Wexford area, to quote them, because services were falling apart. Now, I've met with your predecessor over the last 2 years, and we went through these issues with Deputy James Brown, who has followed this through in terms of the confidence and supply agreement on mental health. And the reality is, Taoiseach, you can quote figures and increased allocation because of demographics or whatever, but too many young people are waiting too long to access services, and too many children in very difficult circumstances are waiting too long to access services. And when I meet ministers, they put their hands out like this and saying, what can we do? There's been a recruitment failure. There's 44 consultant posts advertised in psychiatry. 25% of those had no applications. In child and adolescent psychiatry, for example, Sligo, Leitrim, Cork, Donegal, Longford, Westmeath, Laois, Offaly received no applications. Talk to the IHCA, talk to the Royal College of Psychiatrists, talk to the Psychiatric Nurses Association. Right across the board, there's a recruitment and retention crisis which is affecting services, and people are waiting too long. And I think the government needs to realise that and change tack. Senator Freeman has been quite some time pursuing that legislation, uphill, if the truth be told, against the system. But for too many children, Taoiseach, and for too many young people out there right now, they are waiting far too long and suffering as a result. And a change of approach is required.
Taoiseach.